How would you like to die? Would you prefer it to be long and drawn out, or relatively quick and painless? Wouldn't you like the option to choose? These are just some of the many existential questions sick individuals have to grapple with every single day. The controversial medical practice of ethically ending a life, known as euthanasia, addresses these questions by providing an alternative to the dreaded slow death. Few are fortunate enough to live in a country where euthanasia is legal, and most are instead subjected to live the remainder of their lives suffering. As someone initially strongly anti-euthanasia, I understand the public's reservations against the practice. However, after researching the subject more in depth, I now comprehend the importance euthanasia is as a choice for those who prefer a quick death over a slow, suffering death. Euthanasia should be a legally established practice because of its major economic benefits and how it is a fundamental natural right. And my talk today will focus on these two reasons, and hopefully changes the minds of some of you guys against the practice. As of today, medically assisted suicide is illegal in most of the United States, and even in the states where it is legal, it is highly debated. It is even discouraged in the Hippocratic Oath, an ancient Greek oath of ethics that physicians swear upon before entering the medical field. Because of this public, legal, and social opposition, the procedures and regulations surrounding euthanasia differ from one place to another, but generally involve the following ethical conditions. The 4 general conditions said to be necessary for legalized voluntary euthanasia are: number 1, the patient is unlikely to benefit from the discovery of a cure. Number 2, the patient is suffering intolerable pain and or their life has become burdensome. By burdensome, I mean relying on machinery or doctors to stay alive. Number 3, the patient has a voluntary and competent wish to die. And number 4, the patient has a terminal illness diagnosis. It is important to note that the 4th one, the terminal illness diagnosis, does not include individuals with dementia nor individuals who are fully paralyzed as a result of an accident. Those individuals are subjected to live the rest of their lives suffering. In California, euthanasia exists as the End-of-Life Option Act, allowing terminally ill patients to access medical aid in dying by self-administering lethal drugs. The law passed only 4 years ago, enabling euthanasia as a constitutional practice in our state alone. In contrast, anyone over the age of 12 can request euthanasia in the Netherlands, with parental consent required up until the age of 16. This information clearly highlights the polar difference in progressive euthanasia laws from country to country and even state to state. It also brings forth a difference in both public and professional opinion from one to another. Author Nicola Davis found that more than 90% of general practicing doctors in the Netherlands support euthanasia, compared to only 31.6% in the UK, as you can see by my chart. Because of this differing acceptance of euthanasia, it is difficult to effectively measure the benefits that would follow a nationwide legalization of it in America. However, many strongly believe that euthanasia carries major economic benefits that are supported by analyzing medical spending in the United States. It is no surprise that healthcare spending in the United States is much, much higher than other countries. In 2011, the US spent $2.7 trillion alone on healthcare. To give you guys a mental reference of what is considered high spending, the National Center for Biotechnology Information reports that by 2040, 1 of every $3 will be spent on healthcare. A large portion of that medical spending accounts for individuals nearing the ends of their lives. A study carried out by Gerald Riley and James Lubitz found that Medicare spending in the last year of life accounted for 25% of total Medicare spending, as you can see by my chart. The last year of life for many individuals afflicted with serious illnesses can be the worst. The last year could include sitting in a hospital bed without any quality of life, while money is spent on fruitless attempts to prolong an individual's suffering. Compassion aside, you don't have to be an economist to agree that this does not seem like the best allocation of our country's capital, especially once doctors are certain that a patient's death is imminent. So what could fix this problem? Euthanasia. Strictly from a financial perspective, medically assisted suicide could help lower expensive medical costs paid by all parties that just delay a patient's already impending death. By doing so, it would also benefit those who favor quicker death over the negative circumstances and low quality of life associated with a slow death. But perhaps more importantly, the debate regarding euthanasia is also a matter of our natural rights. Restricting euthanasia is an infringement on our natural, fundamental, and inalienable rights as human beings. But to understand this, we must first understand what our natural rights consist of. The most important right we have as human beings is autonomy. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, autonomy is the capacity to be one's own person and to live one's life according to reasons and motives that are taken as one's own. Wow. Essentially, autonomy is the freedom to make one's own choices as independent individuals. This includes the individual freedom to choose death. If dying is a part of life, why don't we possess the same freedoms we have while living life? Through information collected by the American Medical Association, a large percentage of patients with advanced illnesses often receive care not based upon their own personal preferences, but rather those of their relatives. In most cases, family members prefer to keep a patient alive, hoping for a miraculous discovery, rather than allow the patient an easier death. Euthanasia is that easier death, free of excess suffering. Our own Constitution is said to protect our rights of life, liberty, and property. Its influence derives from John Locke, the original proponent of natural rights. However, if our natural rights were truly inalienable and protected by the government, we should be able to choose the way in which we depart from our own lives. As author Anton van Nieuwkerk writes, if people have the right to live with dignity, we also have the right to die with dignity. And there is no dignity in suffering while hospitals strip you of your fundamental right to live and die by your own choosing, and drain you of your money. Let me end by saying this. If everyone dies eventually, why should we be restricted in the ways we can die? Medical resources and money are wasted in fruitless efforts to prolong an individual's life, often without considering the wants of that suffering individual. People own themselves and make their own choices, and thus should be able to consent to dying however they choose. Restrictions on euthanasia directly oppose this, and thus must be put to an end. It is not enough that certain states allow euthanasia while others don't. Euthanasia must be legalized nationwide. It is more than an economic solution to our country's medical spending. It is part of a fundamental right, firmly established and protected by the supreme law of our country. Thank you.